night issues. All right, very good. All right, so we'll start February 15th, 2018 work session. If we could please stand for the pledge first. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. You're ahead of me there, Jim.
I never pause. One nation under God, not one nation. Afterthought.
All right, we'll start the work session, and we'll start with the IT infrastructure and telecom upgrade. So if I could call up, Bill, you're here, Paul and Vincent? Up, yep, come on up here. Yep, have a seat.
Hi, Vincent, by the way.
Vincent?
Nice to meet you, good
Hi.
morning.
Morning.
Hello,
Morning.
hello.
Paul.
Hi,
How are
nice
you?
to meet you.
Paul?
And then I think we're gonna have Bill Roth come up.
Sure.
Yeah, I'm like,
Better. And then we do video it, so I'm just gonna ask you to introduce you by yourself by the full name and your affiliation.
Absolutely.
All right, so we can get started. So do you wanna introduce yourself?
Sure, my name is Vincent Tedesco, I'm with Total Technology Solutions with the IT consultant who just awarded the bid to consult Riverhead on their IT solutions and support Riverhead as well.
Paul Navola, work for Total Technology Solutions, senior engineer.
Okay, one of the reasons that we had come, and then Jim, this is for a telephone system that we're looking, are you familiar with the Newcastle?
We did take a look.
Okay.
At the quote, we did have a conversation with Newcastle and Telcom Data Service as well last week. Several people on the phone, and we spoke to them for about 35, 40 minutes.
Okay, and so what is, that was one of the issues, that's actually why part of the reason we asked you was that, we had, spoke to Newcastle, they came and presented what they wanted to do to upgrade our telephone systems, and there was pretty much, there was a lot of questions afterwards, how, if the systems would be compatible, if it would take away or slow down some of the systems that we have now, so we're just asking for, your opinion on that.
So our recommendations, as of right now, we recommend not to go forward for a couple of reasons. You're having an issue with the network. As we speak, there's latency in the network. It's been going on for at least since last July of 2017. I would not add any more technology to a network that needs to be repaired. The latency needs to be fixed. We need to find out what's going on with it. We think we have a handle on it as of last week. It seems to be going better. That's as of last Thursday or Friday, we had to down the servers and reboot some switches, and it seems to be okay, but it's just a short few days that everything seems to be going okay. So our recommendation is not to go forward with any type of upgrade or phone system at this point in time.
And how long do you think before you'll be able to get a handle on the issue that we can address our phone?
Your IT manager, director, Lori, mentioned yesterday she's gonna make some additional phone calls to your end users and see if they're experiencing any latency. I would recommend seriously at least 30 days from when we found the issue, or hopefully found the issue, so another 3 weeks before you pull the trigger on any phone system.
And end user meaning
Staff.
the staff
Yeah,
users for the
Working for the
I'm sorry,
town.
we have a couple of departments in particular that have been latent more than just during our busy times or at lunchtime when
great.
we're backing up. So I think she wants to make sure that those users in particular are not latent anymore.
Bill, which departments are having trouble? Building?
I think building and assessors are the two big ones. They have some other programs on there, like BAS. The assessor has an RPS program that puts some strain on their particular homepage, I'll call it. I think she wants to make sure, like, I've been working fine since then. I think we went, you can correct me, Vinny, it went from 80% to 7 or 8% on that network. When it's at 80%, apparently that's, you know, whether we're backing up or we have a big load on the system, gives us problems. Down at 7 or 8%, I guess it shouldn't, except for we wanna make sure that those departments that were getting latency throughout the day don't have those consistent.
So who's getting latency right now? Back to your questions.
Yeah, I
the
think
assessor, the assessor and
buildings
building
and
are the two that I'm
assessors.
aware of,
Assessor and
there
building,
may
and
be
that's
some
it?
other ones, yeah.
And-
Maybe justice court, I have to check on that, but I know that those are the three that have special programs that, was causing some latency.
But a lot of that had to do with when we were backing up the system and during the backup periods and the length of the backup periods and the duration, that there was a lot of failure into the programs. So what are you saying that needs to be done, or you just want a 30-day trial just to make sure that it doesn't crash again?
Twofold, the backup is causing additional latency, a lot more throughput, a lot more data, engines being revved.
But that's when we found that we had the latency, is when we were doing the backups.
Yeah, but I'm sorry,
No, go
but
ahead.
these three departments were having them even not during backup times. In other words, they were having them really all from, Laverne was saying from 11 o'clock till 3 o'clock, she was finding latencies on her system.
But I think part of the issue is you're assessing the whole system, correct? The fixes that you put in are basically just temporary fixes as a bridge, to assessing the whole system.
Correct. We are assessing the whole system, we're new,
Mhm.
started January 2nd and 3rd, early in the year. We are assessing the whole system. The existing problems are gonna be temporary fixes until you replace some hardware. There's some really legacy hardware you have in place, some older systems, some out of warranty systems. The backup that you're using is an older type of backup. It's not true business continuity as per se. That's not causing latency as per se, but there's a lot that we need to uncover. It's gonna take a couple of months to figure that out. Not to say that you can't go forward with the phone system.
Is that because it won't take up that much, if you can fix the
Well, voice
latency
is very
problem?
small
Then
right
it's
now.
just, it's just,
Exactly.
yeah,
Voice
so
is
it would
very
just
small.
require,
Right, and basically it was, it looks to be a switch, which is the traffic cop sending information out back
so
and
it's just
forth.
a switch replacement that will,
We may have just resolved the switch with some updates, some upgrades to the switch, configuration updates, rebooting the switch. It may be okay, it has been for the last week or so.
So the
So it
bottom
may
line
not
is you wanna
necessarily.
make sure that's all working, the new, before we move forward with
The
the system.
fix, if the fix is okay, which is really just, again, configuration, and
Rebooting the switches.
rebooting and some, updates to the configuration, if that resolved it, I'm not saying you need to replace anything at this point in time. Don't get me wrong, you need some work on your system, but that's not holding you back from going forward with the phone system, because it takes up very little.
What about the Edmonton system that we just are now using? Do you think that that is going to overload the system or overload the switches?
No.
No.
I guess-
that's running, it's running at capacity
Right.
now, so it should, if it's interfering, it should be
It-
interfering now.
It should actually have less throughput. It's a newer application. There's a lot of, cities and villages that we deal with that are going to Edmonton. Probably 5 or 6 in the last 12 months, and they're all having a good experience with it. So I think it was a good choice to choose that.
So it's just the Cobalt system that was,
That, is, you know, probably a little bit older than I am, and it's pretty old, so,
Ready for the Smithsonian.
you know,
we'll give you the old equipment.
Thank you.
You wanna put it in your museum.
Thank you. We do have a museum, 30 years of museum.
Well, I could tell you, and I'm kinda a little biased, but I mean, we worked with Telecom for over a year and a half, almost 2 years. And part of that whole proposal was they realized the antiquated system that we had in this town. So they came up with a solution to give us a better upgrade to our phone system, going around that particular type of system with the FiBridge, which is not a new technology, but a lot of people aren't familiar with it.
Right.
Now, I realize that's, what you're here is you're looking at the data side, you're looking at everything that connects us data-wise with everybody. So I think that the teleservices are all on the outside of that, for the most part. And I think part of their proposal was that they were gonna do a network assessment just for their own purposes, not what you're doing.
I am aware.
Just for their purposes to see where latencies may be, or where, if it could work, if there has to be upgrades, that was all part of their package prior to any real material coming in, but, so I think it's, I think if you work, I think you're both working together. Your recommendation is that at this point, the town data system just inadequate enough to accommodate a voiceover?
It's inadequate today only because we came into a latency situation. These slowdowns day in and day out, probably going on, I know for a fact since July of 2017. So to add anything whatsoever to an existing network that's having an issue is just something I would recommend holding off on for a bit.
But I think you said that what they're saying is they did put a fix to it, and they're comfortable saying 30 days?
Yeah.
If the
Well,
issue
yeah,
has
right,
been
they
resolved
wanna-
with the
right, they wanna
latency in
make sure
30
that
days, that then the telephone system would be okay to put on there, is that my understanding?
I think if the phone system was coming in completely separate and had its own cabling as opposed to the five bridges, it wouldn't even be an issue, we wouldn't even be sitting here today, we're not in the phone business, we're not in the VoIP.
But it's running on the same network.
You know, but it's running on the same network, using some of the same cable, which is the five bridge recommendation of using the existing cabling, I think it's the Cat 3 cabling that they're gonna use, and that's gonna be the additional hardware necessary, for the voice to be utilized. So being that's gonna even touch it, I don't know, I guess you've been waiting over a year and a half for it, so.
But you know what the issue may turn out to be, if we put the phones on and then we have increased latency, what is it then? Is it the phones, or is it some other issue in the network? And then we're gonna have a hard time
Well,
figuring out which
if
is
that
which.
voice data, which is so minute, that throws that thing, then you might as well scrap the entire system and just redo everything, if that's the case.
No, but what I'm saying
That
is
is such
we
a
have,
small point, I don't think it's gonna tip the apple cart. I don't think.
but if the apple cart does get tipped, when we put it in, we won't know what it's from. Whether it's something that they fixed, or that when they upgraded the switches, if it still
I don't know
remains,
about
would
that.
have a latency issue, then it's not the
I
switches,
think they're pretty good
and you
at
need to,
monitoring that, I mean, between you and, I mean, there is
but how would you differentiate what it was?
constant monitoring.
That's what I'm saying, because they've made they changed some of the configuration of the switch, right? And they're saying
Well,
that.
they found a switch that was faulty, yeah.
Right, and they made a fix to it to relieve some of the latency. So what they're asking for is the 30 days to see
Oh,
that it's
I'm not
fixed.
married, I mean, I appreciate all of this, it all has to be done, unfortunately, it's been long overdue. So, I mean, I think both avenues have to be investigated, there's no doubt about it.
Well, I think.
I just think by the time telecom does their own, they're gonna do their own independent assessment anyway.
Right, but they're not,
which is-
but they're not going to assess anything on our network. They're just gonna see if their network works on our network, if the telephones
Well,
work.
that's
But they're not, if we have a latency problem, once they hook up, they will not address the latency problems on our computers.
No, they will not, but they will point out where the latencies are.
But they won't, they can't, they won't address that. They'll only address the
They'll say-
latency in the phone, if the phone
What they
isn't
do for
working.
3 months, Laura, what they do for at least 3 months, 12 weeks, is they come in with their own monitoring systems, and they do a network assessment based on one talking to another, whatever, you know, prior to anything. And they can find out, one, if the system is well enough to accommodate the voice over IP, and if it's not, where latencies are, why it won't work, then it would have to be addressed. So before anything is hooked up, they're not gonna, believe me, they're not gonna put tires on a car that has no
You're
wheels.
talking about Newcastle.
But
Any-
is that your
right,
understanding
any-
of what they'll do? After speaking to them?
They had mentioned they were gonna come in and do an assessment of the existing network. Yes.
But not
But
to
just
address any problems with the network,
to
just see if it
accommodate
would
their
work with their
products,
system.
correct?
Yeah, they're not working on the data side.
No, it's
Yeah,
not to do
they're-
anything with the data,
right.
just to see if it would accommodate that particular system.
Which, I find it hard to believe that the existing network, if the latency has been repaired, that it wouldn't accommodate it.
Well, I think it
But
makes
just to be
sense
sure,
Wait the
It
30
makes sense to be
days and then.
sure, except that, I thought there was a timeframe
There
on the
is.
Newcastle offer, that was the problem.
That's gonna
Well, there
cost
is-
us
Weren't we
more money,
already
is the bottom
really
line.
extended
There is
on
a,
that?
there is a, they've
Wasn't that the
Extended
issue?
the discount.
well, that's one of the issues.
Once.
But, yeah, but they're gonna hold that for
You're gonna hold it?
a little while, not much.
Okay.
They'll,
All right.
I spoke to the CEO and the president, I don't see an issue with them holding that price.
So 30 days, you'll come back to us in 30 days and report off to Bill, any issues that we've had over the 30 days for the latency, and then if not, then we can move forward with the phone service? Does that seem reasonable?
I mean, provided that Newcastle can still offer us the
Yeah.
system under the
I
same
think they
terms.
can, I have a conference call with them tomorrow, but
Well, we know Black Box isn't supported any longer, so we don't really, you know, we have to figure something out. So.
right, and I think this is part and parcel, I think that I think both, I think we have to do the both. We have to address our whole infrastructure and the networking and the data, along with the overall telecom. The telecom's just a small portion, really, so you guys cut the heavyweight. Telecom is,
We know.
yeah, right.
We don't wanna know.
We live this.
You guys are fixing the motor, we're just putting new tires on the car.
All right, so we're all okay, so you'll report off in 30 days and let us know if we're up and running well enough to put the, attach the phone system. Thank you.
Good. Thank you, have a nice day.
Thank you,
Nice to meet
appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Nice to meet you as well.
What are these, 150s?
Good day.
two.
Thank you, have a good day.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, and then, we'll do kind of care building permit, if we could have,
Tonight,
yep, there you go.
next.
Chris Kent, representing the applicants, also here. I don't know if you'd like to have him join us?
I want to wait till
Yeah, we're doing
Kinda care.
kind of care first.
Oh, pecan, oh,
Yeah,
sorry.
Yep, that's okay.
Well, we do always
Chris
like to
Kent
see
Yes.
you.
This is a reference to the clearing permit, I believe, right?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. As you know, back in January, you approved the preliminary site plan application for the Pecana Care Drug Addiction Facility over at the Calvert and Camelot Epcal Center. The resolution states, and the town code says, you cannot undertake any land clearing activities until you have final site plan approval.
So you have a building permit.
Correct. And, you know, they're up against DEC's requirements that they cannot take down any trees between April 1st and October 1st because of bat habitat.
November, March.
November first.
November 1st to March.
March, yeah,
March
April
31st.
1st to March, to November 1st.
So, if they don't get this permit to take down these trees now, they will have to wait 7 to 8 months until at least November to start doing any site work.
6 weeks.
So,
But you know what, but I understand what you're saying, but I've been having discussions with you, Chris, since November, and you had the punch list since November, and I told you to, you know, get working on those, because you were pushing for the town board to adopt the site plan approval for Pecana Care in December.
You're referring to the punch list for MGBC, Calvert and Camelot subdivision?
I am referring to the Pecana Care, resolution for final approval that we adopted in January, that you had at the end of November. And I told you, Chris, start working on these things, the recordings with the county clerk, so that come January 1, when the new board comes on, we can approve it, and within 2 weeks, you can have your final approval, and you could start pulling building permits. And you said, I'm working on it, I'm working on
I'm
it.
not sure what you're referring to
I'm
as the
referring
punch list
to-
for the Pecana Care. The punch list was for the MGBC
No, it wasn't.
subdivision
I can
approval
go
of
get it if you
dedication.
like, because
dedication
or
of the
actually, I
road.
have it in my
It's a
emails right
point.
here.
I think we approved the preliminary site plan approval in mid-January.
January
Right,
17th.
But he had that resolution in November of 2017, and I told him, start working on these things, because, Chris, we had meetings in my office, I have the dates.
We were talking about the punch list
No,
for
we
the
were not.
dedication of the roads for the subdivision.
No, I told you, I remember
What difference does it make?
specifically, because it's a big difference,
I'm not sure what
because,
you're referring to.
Means
because
we're
I
not gonna
told you
address
to
I really
start-
am not, I'm honestly not not realizing what you're, I have no idea what
okay,
you're talking about.
so planning staff prepared a report for Pecana Care that said that you must do this, this, this.
You're talking about the comment letter?
Yes,
So we've been working through that comment letter since so the first letter came out in June.
we're talking about the roads?
No, she's talking about the comment letter
Pecana
from
Care,
Karen.
nothing to
Okay.
do with.
Oh, yeah,
Karen's
yeah.
The
comment
preliminary,
letter.
prior to the
Yeah.
preliminary site plan being
Yeah.
approved.
Yeah, well,
Right.
that's a standard,
That's correct,
okay,
right?
I'll walk through that if you want.
Yeah, and we went through that, and there were conditions in the preliminary approval that addressed the remaining items that they have to address when they submit for the final.
And so what
But I think Jody's
but my-
speaking prior to that.
my conversations with you, Chris, were, we don't need to adopt this in November, December, let's wait for the new members of the board to come on so that they're familiar with it, because they're gonna be living with it
Right.
during their career, or their tenure on the town board. And I said, you have the list of all the requirements that you have to meet, including the filings with the county clerk, the deed dedication, certain things, the natural space that was being preserved, all of
That's all
those
happened.
covenants.
Yeah.
Okay, but I I told you, I said, get all that done, so that in the first
I'm not
meeting.
sure what you wanted me to get done prior to preliminary. Really, I'm not, I don't
I'm gonna go
understand what
through
you're
the punch
referring
list
to.
with you.
Let's go through the punch list, I'll be glad
Okay.
to go through the punch list.
So, and I said, so
But
that when.
I guess what my question is, what is the outcome that,
Because I told him, I said, we can approve, preliminary approval in mid-January, and we can give you final approval 2 weeks later, and then you can get your building permit and you can start the work. So he had several months before we gave him the preliminary approval in January to complete the list that planning staff created. And the fact that it's now the end of February and it's still not done is, you know, cause you could have had your building permit already. You had your preliminary approval with all the conditions in it.
Well,
irregardless
regardless
of
of whether
we-
he's
That-
been
that-
delinquent.
Yeah,
First of all, I
I
didn't receive
think
the
we are,
preliminary.
I think we are where we are now, so I think this is to grant a permit to take down the trees, before the date runs out, and then to come back, soon, for the site, to the final site plan approval.
Right.
Final
Town
site plan
code-
application, can I speak then, please? Final site plan application was just submitted last week in response to the preliminary site plan approval that was granted on January 17th. So within less than 4 weeks between preliminary and the submission of final site plan application, we were less than 4 weeks. The preliminary required many changes, revisions to the site plans so that we could submit final site plan application. In the interim, we made a determination and we came back to planning staff last Tuesday, and Councilman Hubbard was there. We made a request that we be granted an interim final site plan just for the purposes of clearing the trees so that we could meet the DEC deadline that was imposed as a condition on our
Clearing.
incidental take permit.
Correct.
DEC's incidental take permit says that there could be no clearing between, all clearing must occur, it's actually in the positive. All clearing must occur between November 1st and March 31st. So we're concerned that there will be certain conditions on the final site plan approval that we will not, despite best efforts with staff, full cooperation, timely review, we will not be able to meet the March 31 deadline, even if we get final site plan approval on March 6th, which is what we're hoping to have received. Even if we receive it on March 6th, the covenants that'll have to be recorded after approval of final site plan, we could not have recorded them any time between the comment letter and final site plan approval. There's no way to record covenants against the property. So we'll still have to record covenants, we'll have to then submit final site plans that will be revised based upon the conditions contained in the final site plan resolution, which we're hoping to get March 6th. We just don't feel between March 6th that there'll be enough time to commence and complete clearing of trees by March 31.
And this was all addressed at the planning committee, and
Correct.
you guys were okay
Yes.
with this moving forward and putting this into
Absolutely.
the packet?
Understood, but the town board doesn't have the authority to grant approval to circumvent the town code. The only board that has the authority to do that is the zoning board of appeals. Town code says you can't get a clearing permit unless you have a building permit. So we cannot, we can change the
This
code
was run past,
to make it that you
this was
can.
run past legal?
Yeah, legal chair.
Bob, could you come up and address this, please?
I'm surprised me that the town can't circumvent its own law. That was
You have to
surprising.
change the
We're not
code.
circumventing anything.
No, not you. I'm talking
No, but
about
I'm-
us as a town board.
It's
You're
a
not even,
local law.
you're not circumventing
Can't
anything.
make certain exceptions for some and not for others.
We're
and
asking
we-
for a building, for
I
approval
understand what you're
and a
asking
building
for, but
permit. We're not
Jody's raised the question,
circumventing.
so let's ask Bob. Morning, Bob. Morning.
Morning.
So Jody, would you like to repeat your
Do
question?
what Larry
I have a
asked me to do,
question.
just
Okay.
to knock all the trees down. Deal with it later.
The code does provide that final site plan review is required for land clearing. There are unusual circumstances here, which the applicant has explained, which are, I think, exigent circumstances that you could consider. It is not, the code, if you are looking at it literally, says final site plan approval.
I thought it said building permit. No clearing
Well, they're gonna
or
get a building
grading.
permit, they're gonna get a building permit. What the application is, if you allow this to move forward, they will then file a building permit, and they're also proposing to file a performance security or bond to ensure that anything that happens here, should they fail to follow up and proceed with final site plan approval and do what they're saying they're going to do, there's going to be a bond amount that's gonna be in place in order to allow the town to go back in and revegetate and put it to the place it is in essentially today. So that's what this resolution
Okay.
calls
Yeah,
for.
But
We're asking for final,
Just one second.
The way I read the code, because I pulled it yesterday, when I got your letter yesterday, Mr. Kent, is that no building permit shall issue until, no clearing or grading shall occur unless you have a building permit. No building permit can issue unless you've met all of the conditions of the preliminary approval. And the Mylar can't be signed until all the conditions have been met, and a building permit can't be issued until the Mylar has been signed and recorded. So, I still don't get where we are with getting the building permit.
I
mean,
think
if you-
Jefferson will, okay. This is section 301-303B of the code. No person shall undertake or carry out any such activity or use, including without limitation, any grading, clearing, cutting, or filling, excavating, or tree removal associated therewith, without first obtaining site plan approval therefore pursuant to the provisions of this article, posting a performance bond provided herein, and securing a land clearing permit pursuant to chapter 217.
Okay,
that's
so-
why we made application for, final site plan approval that, for the clearing, demolition of buildings and grading of the property. We
Okay,
made
so the section of the code that I'm reading that says no clearing permit shall be issued unless you get a building permit doesn't exist, is that what you're telling me?
No, we're gonna get a
No,
building
no,
permit.
no.
This is a building permit.
A building permit would be issued after approval of final site plan for tree clearing.
It says
If you
no,
grant final site plan for tree clearing, we can then pursue a building permit, which we will do. We will post the bond or letter of credit, in an amount determined by the town, based on a plan that we're proposing for cutting down the trees, stockpiling the trees, and having them available for grinding if necessary to disc back into the soil that would allow it to revegetate, which would be the remediation plan. That's going to be prepared as soon as, we get the go-ahead today, that's what you want us to do. An amount will be determined by the consulting engineer, who will determine the
That's not
value
something
or
that's
the
within my
cost,
call.
the cost of that, remediation plan. We will post that bond. But I can tell you, we want to get the approval, final site plan approval for the tree clearing, and then pursue full final site plan on March 6th. We probably won't commence clearing of the trees until sometime in March, just so that we can have the trees down prior to March 31st. The trees do not have to be removed from the site. They only have to be on the ground so that the northern long-eared bat,
Can't potentially use them as habitat.
can't breed, use it for habitat and breed.
And
We
that's-
also want to demolish the buildings, because if the bats don't have the trees, they're very adaptive, and they'll go to the buildings. So we want to also demolish the buildings at the same time. But we won't remove the trees, we'll probably leave them stockpiled on site. And if we don't go forward, or if we don't receive final site plan approval for the entire project, we would have to proceed with the remediation plan, which would be the grinding of the trees and the disking of the tree chips, or whatever you get when you grind them, back into the soil that would allow it to naturally revegetate like they do in other parts of the Pine Barrens.
so the reason why the town board adopted the code saying that no clearing shall occur until a building permit is issued, because developers were going in, they were clearing all the trees, and then years would pass before they would go in and take out a building permit. And people would be left with cleared areas, and whether or not they would come in and build eventually, or maybe not, that's why we adopted the code that said you had to have a building permit first.
And
So-
we're going to secure a building permit before we clear any trees.
I just think you have plenty of time, Chris, to meet all
I
these
just think that,
conditions.
Well, the bond itself is good too. And putting a bond up is almost a surety that
Right.
that's gonna happen.
Absolutely.
Yeah, but the site plan has been amended, correct?
Amended in what way? I'm not sure what you
Well,
mean.
December
Bob,
first, there were
draft
changes that had to
resolution
occur to the
for
site
that
plan.
was-
They have been. They've been
Okay.
resubmitted and resubmitted
We have
again.
to-
They were submitted December 13th. Plans were then submitted again in February based on the approved preliminary. The preliminary was based on the plans that were submitted in October. Plans were revised in December. We could then received a preliminary approval. We've now submitted again revised plans. I think they're dated February 8th. I think they're February 8th, right?
February, I believe.
Resubmitted again in response to the conditions in the preliminary approval. And now we made a determination and we came to the town requesting that we be allowed to do the tree clearing on a separate final approval just for the clearing of the trees, which would then allow us to get a building permit for the tree clearing, because you've approved a final plan that permits the tree clearing.
I know, but you know that's not what the code says, right? Code says no clearing
It
shall
says it
occur
based on a
unless you have a
final
building
plan.
permit.
Permit, we're going to get a permit. I
A
don't
building
know why-
permit for the building. You don't get a building permit for clearing trees. You get a tree clearing permit and a grading permit for clearing trees. It's not a building permit, it's a tree clearing permit. So, I told you why we said that you can't clear any trees unless you get a building permit. And if you're not getting a building permit, I don't think that this board has the authority to usurp the code and say, we're gonna let you clear because of your time constrictions with, or time constraints with the DEC for clearing. I think it's actually something that the zoning board of appeals should be waiving.
And so Bob, what's your opinion on this?
Yeah. about it
Again,
legal.
just to reiterate,
Yeah, well, you've heard it.
the
You've heard
code
Jody's
does require a building permit. And what we're hearing is that the building permit will issue. There's going to be a building permit that's gonna issue sequentially here. So what's happening is Peconic is coming to this board first to get the modified, amended, and limited site plan approval in order to allow for the clearing under the code, so that they get to a quote, final site plan approval as required under code for that limited purpose. Then, before they can go clear, they're going to go to the building department, apply for and seek a building permit, presumably be granted a building permit, and then at that point, undertake the work.
Okay,
So they're not going to clear until they get a building permit.
Correct,
he said
Okay,
that.
so then why are you here?
because we still need that site plan aspect done. They've got to make their site plan, because the code says final site plan, you need that site plan approval.
Okay, but how can we give them final site plan approval when they haven't met the conditions of
He's-
preliminary
He's
approval?
only doing it for the purposes of the clearing. And it's gonna have a condition that they, facilitate and follow up and complete the rest of the project. They're going to require a bond. So the issue that you brought out, which, the issue that you brought out with respect to the fact that others had cleared land and left it, we're looking to address that by having the bond in place for the security.
And a remediation plan.
I'm concerned that this is precedent setting, and that he's gonna be followed by, several other developers that aren't meeting the preliminary approval, and.
I would think that the bat issue is probably
the
something that's
exit
I
not
think
gonna
that's,
be
I think that's,
circumstances
the difference is the
supersede.
the timing.
I mean, there might be other
Yeah.
circumstances which cause exigent type of circumstances, I'm not saying there won't be, but,
We're trying to work around a state DEC
but given the
recommendation, so.
constraints on this property that we know are
The
great.
DEC permit is good through 2022.
Yeah, but it's gonna stall the project for 18 months, right?
8 months.
8 months.
It would kill until, the November
Right.
time period for them to go back in and.
So different than us going and dredging the creek in March when you really shouldn't, but that's the only time they allow us to do it because of the
Right.
flounder. It's the
So
same.
this letter was sent to Cameron Engineering on December 1st, 2017 with all the conditions. And now it's February.
Those aren't
3.
conditions, those are comments in response to plans that were submitted. So
Okay.
we submitted, in response to that letter from December 1st, we resubmitted plans on December 13th in response to that letter.
Okay, so let me look for our preliminary approval, which was mid-January, that included all
January
these
17th.
conditions, correct?
January 17th, that's
Included
correct.
all of these comments.
Correct.
Okay, so what I'm saying is you knew December 1st what the comments were. The preliminary approval was issued mid-January. You had known for 45 days of what the conditions were going to be, and now we're at the end of February, or middle of February.
15th.
and-
We are 4 weeks out from the preliminary approval. We resubmitted plans in response to the preliminary approval granted on January 17th. We resubmitted plans on February 8th.
So why don't we do this? I mean, this is up on Tuesday, we've heard the comments. Bob, if you could write something up as to your thoughts on this to share with the board, and then it'll get voted on Tuesday.
Wednesday.
Wednesday.
Wednesday, yeah.
I don't
Yes.
have anything written up, you
Yeah.
just explained everything.
Yeah, I certainly can, I realize there's some problems with timing, but I understand this has to be done, and I just think in furtherance of making this rehab center a reality in the town, to me, I think we can make it happen. I support it.
I have, one of the questions I have is for the tree clearing, will it be monitored? Do we monitor the tree clearing? so we have somebody there and we're notified.
Yeah, you wanna do another monitoring agreement like we've done in other places with clearing?
Do you have an approved SWIP?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, so
Yes.
you're gonna be
Yeah,
putting up the
they have.
silt fencing and you're
Yeah.
going to
We're
be.
gonna meet all the
Yes.
conditions of our SWIP, and I believe it's in the, we
The
discussed
resolution
it.
actually recites the
Okay.
fact that there's a SWIP that's
We
approved.
discussed that yesterday, all the conditions, I haven't seen the resolution, but I'm sure
It
it
mentions
contains.
it.
Okay,
It mentions the fact that there's a SWIP.
And it's been approved by our
Correct.
outside engineers.
Correct.
and we will also submit a remediation plan if you'd like that. I had started working with Cameron on that yesterday, so.
Yeah, I'm
And
going
what
to
the
need
bond will
I'm
be,
gonna need
is
something
not-
in order for us to work with our consulting engineer to determine what's the appropriate amount.
For the bond,
Correct.
yeah.
And we hope to have that for you for Wednesday.
We would just
I
ask
think we
that,
would need it before Wednesday.
yeah, we'd ask that that be included in the resolution, your acceptance of the amount, because that has to be approved by resolution. So we'd like to add
I've had that discussion with council, and I've said that in the past, it's always been our practice that when we receive a form of security, whether it's a bond, letter of credit, cash, we've always asked the town board to accept it by resolution. I don't feel the town attorney's office has the ability to just accept a performance bond, so.
You have
it would
a
have to be
problem
done-
with it?
It would have to be done by you as the board.
And one of the reasons that I would like something
Okay.
written by Bob is
Legal
that,
opinion?
yeah, is because so that we don't have exactly what Jody's saying about when somebody comes back and says, well, you know, what was the reasoning for this, 5 years from now, when we have a clear understanding that this certainly had to do with the time frame and the limited amount of clearing time to be able to move a project that is of regional significance, going forward in our community, and that we've been working on. So I think that very much limits, the ability to come back and second guess
It
why
truly
it was done in
right,
the
I agree
future.
with
So
you.
I think that should be,
I
part of this
support the
record.
project, and I support you moving forward, I just think that you had plenty of time to address these comments.
I just think, right,
Well,
I
thank
mean, this whole set of scenario probably will never repeat itself ever again. So, and you gotta
We
take
were-
a case by case.
We
and-
were
But-
seeking
but
preliminary,
let's
just to be clear.
on
yeah.
why our decision was being made. Our decision being made to allow this to go forward is for a very, very limited reason.
Right, like I said,
And that
this
should be
whole-
very clear moving forward, that we made the decision based on that.
And that the town board has the authority to
Sure.
go over the town code and make exceptions in the town code.
We were seeking preliminary approval from the board in December, and we were told to wait till January.
Right.
Well, we are where we are now, and so, I think,
I'll do that. Thank you.
Thank
okay,
you.
thank you. And actually, the two of you are up here next for parking for residential use code revision.
Right, you should have a resolution which was circulated yesterday, which is looking to amend chapter 301. Presently, on off-street parking requirements, there is a provision in the code that states that any properties that are located within a public parking district are not required to provide off-street parking. Based upon discussions with the board, the proposal is to go to public hearing such that a residential use as defined, whether it be an apartment complex or a hotel, will in fact be required to provide parking in accordance with the parking schedule that's set forth in the code. So that's it. Anything that's existing as of the time of adoption would not be required to provide off-street parking. Any changes to that plan would, of course, be required to provide off-street parking to the extent that they're expanding or adding to the existing use.
And these are for
Residential type of.
outside the parking district?
Inside
the parking.
Inside the parking,
Yeah.
right.
There's some questions I'm still researching.
Yeah, I think that's, yeah, I'm gonna have to rewrite the whole law.
What's your question, Jim? You have a question?
Who?
You.
Well, no, I know there's the parameters within the parking district, what's allowed, what's not allowed, this is obviously in addition to that, so.
But this would be, I'm just looking for my thing here for it.
Well, the parking district was established a long time ago.
Yeah, right.
And the town board, as part of that parking district establishment, chose to adopt legislation that, of course, said you should not be required to, or indicated you need not provide off-street parking.
Right.
So,
And so the commercial, what it was originally intended for, the businesses that were there, or anything that was pre-existing, as far as that has the residents there, would not be required to comply with this, but moving forward.
Well, I was gonna say, I think we have to rewrite
Back in
the whole law.
1967,
But,
2018.
Yeah.
Things have changed a little bit.
Other communities have adopted similar legislation. The village of Patchogue is one of the principal ones where they've adopted a plan, as they call it, pilot.
Pilot, yeah, right.
And they have done that in connection with wet uses, restaurant uses, which they felt were the ones that were causing them to have concerns about their parking capacities. And they've had that in place.
Do you have a code written already, or?
Yes, there's a resolution in the packet.
Okay.
And this isn't, you know, and those issues can still be addressed down the road, but this is just the beginning of being able to address those issues.
To hear what people have to say.
Yeah.
Good.
All right?
All right.
Any other questions on this? No? Okay, thank you very much.
Bob, do you have another copy of that, Jeff?
Jim has it.
That's the only copy? Can I
Yes,
take
Linda.
it?
Do you mind if the councilman looks at it first?
No, not right
Okay,
now, I mean
thank
after you're finished, I'm sorry.
Right?
I would
Yeah.
never do that to you.
It's in the packet that you
Almost
helps
done.
too. Diane.
Esther.
John, is Anne Marie here? Okay. Sure. Bill, do you wanna come up for the RFP for 2017 basic audit? I don't have it. I don't have that.
Oh, no, I found it. Did you get that?
I think it's one of the amendments.
Yes,
one
I
of the
found it.
resolutions
It's
changed
20.
so that it's an agreement, not a covenant.
Yes.
And that's what that's for, and then if they ever sell it, then
You can make a request that we amend the work session agenda to include
What are we
that.
talking about now?
Sure,
You
okay.
guys are gonna discuss the,
Are we down the RFP already?
If it's under
Well, we're just gonna do that, cause we were just waiting for Anne Marie.
is
So-
that a resolution?
Yeah, it's in there.
Okay, then you don't have to.
Okay, yeah.
It's 23, work session 23 is the
Yes.
one for the park.
Okay, Bill. This is you, this is the RFP for the 2017 basic audit. Do you have the, comparisons?
They probably will. I don't know.
I will,
Hey, John, can you just print this, can you send it to John so he can print it up, please?
Seems I can't be there Friday.
Pay attention now.
Sorry. We're not
We're
talking
just gonna, this is for the RFP for the 2017 basic audit. We had Cullen and Danowski come and present it to us, as well as, always get it, AVZ. And the RFP was done, so, John is just printing up the comparisons, from the RFP that went out. And then we just need to have a discussion and decide who we want to.
my computer's frozen, let me see. Oh, let me see, let me go.
All right, so, we'll switch again. All right, Anne Marie, come on up.
Oh, man.
Sorry about that.
Morning, Anne Marie.
Good morning. So this is Anne Marie, I don't know if Eric's coming too. We'll do the snow events code revision first, and then we'll follow it up with the sidewalks code revision. The snow events one sort of came out of the snowstorms that we had, and as far as people in compliance with them and the way the code was written, it was a little confusing for snow removal, just normal wear and tear maintenance on the sidewalks, what was in front of a residential home and a commercial place. So we just tightened up the code a little bit, so Anne Marie did that, so we'll have her present that to us.
Right, so this is a proposed amendment to chapter 289, titled Vehicles, Traffic and Parking Regulations. So as the town board is probably aware, during the last storm, the highway superintendent and the chief of police had to utilize a lot of manpower to get homeowners and businesses to remove their vehicles because it was impeding the ability to actually clear the roadways. So as a result of that, the chief and the highway superintendent discussed with the supervisor removing the time parameter 8 p.m. to 6 a.m. because we don't know when the heaviest snow is going to fall. So this eliminates that. In addition, the town board's probably well aware that there are certain roads in the town of Riverhead that, are routinely, prone to severe icing and severe, snow drifting, and requiring the town really for health, safety, and welfare to close the roads. During the last storm, I can tell you, there were vehicles, I believe Reeves Avenue was one of them in particular, and despite the fact that a, local snow emergency was declared, vehicles, and we were trying to blockade those roads for safety reasons, vehicles were continuing to traverse those roads. They'd go off into the ditch, and then we'd have to direct police personnel, highway personnel, to get the car out of the ditch. So there's an amendment in here, and it's provided actually under New York State executive law provisions, wherein the supervisor has the ability, after declaring a snow emergency, to issue a supplemental local emergency order to close roadways. And it makes sense because sometimes at the initial declaration of the snow emergency, you will not know what road should be closed to protect the public. So there's an amendment allowing that as well.
Yeah, and I wanna thank you, Supervisor, for, I know that it was your first snowstorm and it was a
It
doozy,
was.
boy. But, you know, I think that your meeting with the Chief of Police and the Highway Superintendent and putting forth a policy for, you know, future snowstorms and also amending the code is admirable, so, thank you.
So, and I'll just alert the town board, what will also be coming is I have drafted a request for proposals for tow truck companies that have four-wheel drive. I'm just waiting for the chief to approve that, and then I'll roll that out to the town board.
That's great.
And if any town board member wants a copy of the executive law regarding the provisions, they're taken directly from that and placed in our code. I have that for you.
So as we discussed, you were going to put out an RFP for tow trucks, and then the day before, then the supervisor
be
or
notified.
staff will be notified, and then the tow trucks will be ready to go, or they won't be on the call list.
Right.
So you'll see the language in the request for proposal. I'll send that out. Once chief approves it, you can look at it. It has the technical requirements in it.
Did the county charge us for them coming out and removing cars?
No, because it was a snow emergency.
Okay.
Are we going to, are you gonna put this up for public hearing?
Yeah, this is it's a proposed amendment to our local law, so it'll be a public hearing. So, could I dovetail to the
Yes, because I
sidewalks?
explained the sidewalks
Right.
first instead of this, sorry about that.
So we also have a proposed amendment to chapter 237, highway, streets, and sidewalks, and it really dovetails related to the snow events. It actually, again, in this case, code enforcement met with and discussed it with the supervisor, a recommendation regarding the requirement to remove snow and ice from residential premises and also from commercial. This amendment actually separates the two, putting the greater onus on the commercial premises. They have to keep it clean immediately after the snowfall. And for residential homes, they have to keep it clear within 24 hours. And the reason being is the goal was for code enforcement and the supervisor not to penalize a lot of the elderly residents in the town and forcing them to go out during or at the tail end of the storm to make sure that they're in compliance. So instead it gives them 24 hours. And
From the end of the storm, or?
Correct.
And
Yeah.
who determines the end of the storm?
The sun.
After the snow has ceased to fall. So I think it's pretty clear. You can check any weather report, and it gives you 5
The only
minutes.
concern I had, which I discussed with you when we met with the chief and Eric about the code revision, is that we have sidewalks that lead up to schools. So if the snow stops at 4 o'clock on a Monday and school is the next morning at 2, at 8 AM, that those sidewalks are not gonna be cleared. So I think that there should be something in there that says that if you're within a mile of a school and it's like Pulaski Street. So the kids are not walking in the street and they're walking on the other side of snow mounds, so that when the plows come through and they're piling up the snow on the sidewalks, the kids are not forced to walk in the street to walk to school. So that was a concern of mine.
Usually though, with the school, there is a 24-hour period before, you know what I mean? If it stops at 6 o'clock in the morning, usually they don't go to school that day, they go to school the next day. It can be revised again after that. I don't know, can we do that, where we would put within a mile of access to a school? We can add that?
Yes.
That it should be cleared before, 7:30 the next morning, if
Or
possible,
I would use
while
the
school,
guidelines for
while school is open,
yeah,
that it needs to be cleared prior, cause if
to
it's,
prevent kids from walking in the street,
so,
people.
What
don't think it's a mile,
distance do you
though.
want?
I'm just trying to think, we should do it based on,
I thought the buses
if
pick
the
up
school,
over a
if the
mile.
school is open, maybe somehow we should do, because either you got the 24-hour, or if the school is open prior to the 24-hour period.
What is it right now, kids within a half mile don't get bused?
It depends whether it's elementary or high school, it varies, and I'm not sure.
So let's just check with the school district what their distance is for busing, whether it's a half mile or a mile, and whatever that is, then we'll put that, we'll add that, we'll use
Because
their
I'm also,
policy.
I'm also concerned too, because the county has been, delinquent as clearing a path from the commercial sidewalks on Route 58 to the bus stop. So people are actually walking out onto the street, even though the sidewalks are cleared, they're walking out onto the street in order to get on the bus. So I think that there should be something in there also that says that,
Well,
the-
maintaining their sidewalks, where
Bus stops
the
are.
bus stops are, the sidewalk behind them are all from commercial places.
no, I know,
So
but
they have to
I
clear.
just think that not only the sidewalk, but they should clear a path so that, people use, if they have a bus stop in front of their establishment, that people can access the bus stop from the sidewalk, not from walking out onto
You
the
may
road.
wanna talk to Dan McCormick, because we had a big
I know.
to do a couple of years ago about
Yeah.
this. And I think there's some understanding between the county and the town on that.
An understanding is good, but if we're changing the code, then we might as well include it. So if
Well,
there's a
let's see.
bus stop in front of a commercial establishment,
Incorporate
there'll be
the
re-
real-
What is the
Well,
requirement,
it-
what is the, I mean,
In front of all sidewalks.
Right, and
In
the-
front of any commercial establishment, must be cleared, no exception.
I know,
and
but
that includes the
Correct.
county
That would
bus
include-
stops,
if there's
because
a
that's on
bus
their
stop.
sidewalk. That's the sidewalk in front of them.
okay.
Yeah, I didn't exempt anyone.
I know, but what I'm saying is that if you have, when the county plows come through, they plow the road, they put a mound, then they clear the sidewalks and they add on to the mound. So it separates the sidewalk, the mound separates the sidewalk from the road. So even though they're required to clear the sidewalks, people are still having to walk around through the opening into the shopping center
Well, I
and
think
out.
what was happening was the sidewalks behind the bus stops weren't getting cleared at all. They have not been cleared. So this clearing of the sidewalks would account for, because where you have the bus stop, the sidewalk sort of goes, it's in the sidewalk. So they would be in, charged with clearing that area by clearing their commercial sidewalk.
There's no path to get to the bus, from the
Right,
bus
is
stop
what
to
I'm
the bus,
saying.
is what she's saying.
Yes.
Right.
Bus
so-
pulls up,
So-
there's a mountain of snow, the sidewalk's
On-
cleared behind
piled
it.
up on both sides of the bus
But if you're standing at
stop.
the bus stop, you have to walk out into the parking lot area or the
Yep.
intersection, out into the road to
Yeah.
come
But
down.
no, that's part of their sidewalk that they own.
So why don't we instead work with the county
That's it.
and we can put something together wherein the county agrees that in the highway right-of-way, cause that's what it is, in the highway right-of-way, wherein a bus shelter is located, that the county actually plow such that pedestrians can gain access to it. It's their
That would work.
right-of-way, so why don't we put the onus on them? And I think they'll accept it, I think it just has to be highlighted for them.
Right.
Well,
I
we
agree.
have to get an IMA with the county to make sure that they're doing that, because I know that there's been problems over the years with the bus stop, and who's gonna be taking them over, and who's gonna be maintaining them, and when somebody does graffiti. So Dan
So we
McCormick,
can add that in addition to this, we'll write out at a separate,
Yeah,
And I did hear that people were walking in the road in that last storm.
Yeah,
But did we put a phone call into, we could put a phone call into the county as well, and we had a problem with it.
Well, I think if
As a
we
starting
alert
point.
them
We have.
that
We spoke to 100
their
persons.
current plowing activity is really impeding the ability for people to use public transportation along their right of way because of their actions, I think
You may
they'll
have some
agree to it.
pictures, you may have some pictures of
I
it
think
from
it's
this
easy
past
just to
snowstorm.
put in the code that says that if there's a bus stop in front of a commercial establishment, a path, not only shall the sidewalk be cleared, but a path to access the bus stop shall be provided as well.
And if not, we're gonna write a summons to the county?
No, because it's not in the county right
We
away,
can-
it goes right up.
Is that enforceable?
The bus stop is actually on
Well,
the,
let's see if it's enforceable
the
first.
county cleared, there is no right of way anymore. There is no shoulder on Route 58, because
I
the
know that,
county
but the
built
sidewalks are county,
the road. So from the sidewalk landward, or
from the end of the sidewalk.
to the
Sidewalk is the
business,
county.
is owned by the business.
Is that,
We're gonna
is that enforceable?
enforce our code on the county's.
Does the county own the sidewalk in front of the bus stop?
I'm right.
I'm honestly not sure.
Okay, so
If
check-
we're talking
check.
about
Those
sidewalks,
sidewalks were
they're
part-
directly in front of
yes,
the bus stop.
those
Because,
sidewalks are
because
part
it
of the
would,
county.
what we're talking is the path from the
We always
sidewalk to
have
the bus
right
stop.
of way.
So can we, can we
I don't think so. I
put
mean, that
upon the
sign came in-
commercial entity to also include a path to the bus shelter? So that's, so we can, you guys look that up, if we'll research that and change it accordingly for Wednesday, once they find out, and we'll send that around.
And
Thank
I can inform the board, that they're not all consistent, and I know that for a fact. I have researched and I have
Might not be.
records regarding the location of the bus shelters. And it is different for each bus shelter where it's located.
Right.
So,
Some are on county roads, some on state
correct,
roads.
correct. Some are sitting
I get
on
it.
their exclusive right-of-ways, some
Some
are
are sitting
on
on private
private
property.
property, correct.
Right.
So they're all different.
So that's why,
So,
So,
thank you, Tim,
we
for
could-
helping me.
we
say
could,
that.
you know, if you, I think I can reword this very simply to put in what you'd like to see
yeah,
for the town board consideration, because otherwise, we're gonna be going through a lot of machinations. And Eric and I are actually gonna be creating subsections for each bus shelter location.
Right, but I'm saying, for the purpose of the public hearing,
Yeah,
just
yeah.
putting something in there that when the sidewalks are being cleared, that an
Absolutely, okay.
access will be made to act, or, a clear, a path will
have
be
the
made to
public
access the bus.
transportation now.
Great.
Good.
That's what
So,
we're doing every
just
time.
to wrap it up, I'm gonna redraft to include that, and as to the residential, I'm gonna redraft to include a distance and school opening reference.
Thank you.
And then just for, I know we had talked about it, just for the first, second violation,
Yes,
did that get into the new?
yes, it did.
Okay.
So the penalty provision, was amended to reflect that, each day, 24-hour period, that any and all violations of this chapter continue to exist shall constitute a separate additional offense, subject to the penalty provisions in B and C below, because as, the first offense is $250, second, $750, third, $1,000. So if you continue for each 24-hour period,
Thank you,
it'll be.
appreciate that.
So hopefully we'll have clean sidewalks.
Well,
Does that go to the
it's been,
tenant and the
it's been an
landlord?
uphill battle, I can tell you that. I send out letters every year to every business on 58, on behalf of the handicap advisory.
All right,
I send
thank
out
you guys
letters to
very
every
much.
business on 58
Thank you.
every year.
Yep.
All right, and then. Okay.
Use park toilet.
The upcoming town board meeting, or is that?
Okay, and, okay, and did you get to print the other stuff up there yet for the?
Yeah, I have it, so when you come up, we'll pass it around.
Okay. Good morning, how are you?
How are you?
Everything goes.
Good. Is Drew coming, or do you
Yeah.
wanna address?
Gonna do Reeves Park.
Reeves Park, okay.
We'll wait for, Joe from Community Development.
Who?
Joe from Community Development.
Oh, Mr. Bigler is here from Reeves Park. He's requesting that any work to be done up there is started on July 4th and completed on Labor Day.
Almost certainly trying to do that.
Perfect weather to do the park.
Yes, he wants,
As long as he supplies
he
the
wants an
barbecue.
oversized toilet.
Did you hear that? You'll have to have a barbecue every weekend.
I was gonna say, the gazebo's perfect.
Thanks, Joe.
Next to the memorial stone.
There you go. Next to the wedding chapel.
You do weddings?
I do weddings there all the time.
Did you get one, Diane? There we go, somebody.
No, okay. So you just have to give one for the public too then.
Okay.
I got your brief email, one line.
All right, would you like to present? Who would like to present?
There is a need, as we've come before the town board before, to upgrade the sanitary system at Reeves Beach for the use of the bathrooms at the same facility. So the engineering department, along with community development, have seeked a grant, which will provide 50% grant funding for the project, which we've estimated around $79,625. The system that we're proposing is one of the new innovative nitrogen reducing systems that the county has been in the last few years pushing for homeowners to do, and parks as well. So we seeked county approval from the health department last October. So we have county health department approval for our plan, which will, in a nutshell, basically just replace the size system that's there with something that's more environmentally friendly.
Jeff Seaman is doing he did the secret
Study?
termination already, and the grant actually requires an actual resolution, so
Okay.
he's doing that separately. And I should point out that $15,000 of our match is in-kind services.
Actually, out of pocket is about 64,000.
No,
No, it should be
24,000.
24,000.
yeah.
Okay.
And that's for this, and that's already budgeted?
No, it's not budgeted.
Bill,
Oh, 24,000.
do you know about this grant application?
24,000?
So I was just gonna say, who's doing the fiscal impact statement?
Then a public hearing first. Did you guys share this with, okay.
Take it out of rec fees.
No, this resolution is not for the public hearing, it's to
Public
authorize
fees,
you
so-
For the grant submission.
for the grant submission, so if we're submitting the grant application, then we have to make sure that we have the money for the match, which is 24,000, so we gotta figure out where that money is.
We could submit the application, but, you know, you don't wanna have, it
Yes,
get
have it
approved and then we can't go
Right,
forward with it, so.
Well, some of the, I think some of the funds could probably come out of rec as well as town.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so I'm not sure where we're coming up with this money, so we can discuss this after. You want me to sign up for it on the fiscal policy to see where we're coming from?
When is the grant, when are they expected to award the grant?
It's like a rolling deadline, so,
Oh, so they could approve it next month?
well, yeah, but.
Well, hopefully by the spring.
Well, I think this is part of kind of what we're doing, is I know that you guys wanna submit for this and get this done, but I don't know, it's not been discussed with, myself and the budget, and the town board to figure out where we're coming up with the 24, so we need to do that, prior, cause you don't wanna put it out of your budget, do you, Drew?
We actually could.
Could you?
Yes, we had planned to do that, as a matter of fact.
like Ernesto mentioned, we brought this up before in
Right.
front of the town board,
I remember hearing you discuss
Yeah.
this
and
months ago.
went back to Lisa and decided we could definitely find the money if we needed it.
All right, so then we'll put this through the package,
Well, thank you.
but
I
you
guess I'll
guys,
start going to Reed's Beach now.
all of you guys need to sit with Bill and
With
get,
all my
get
family,
the,
all 100.
you know that this is, and then it becomes encumbered.
Okay,
Right, so the fiscal impact statement would be filled out by you, Drew, saying that you're encumbering this 24,000 out of your budget, and I don't know what your.
Well, not yet, because we didn't do the public hearing on it yet, but
Public hearing on what?
for the fiscal
On the
impact
fiscal
statement.
impact statement.
Yeah.
Okay,
I did send emails to all department heads, so they have, they have that form that they can
Okay.
fill out, and then we can sit down and go through it. I'll-
Okay.
I'll
because
fill
your
it out, and
budget
then we can
probably
attach it to the
includes
rest of
other projects, yes?
Yes.
Okay, so then certain projects aren't gonna get done that you budgeted for, if we're taking 24,000 out.
we have a, what's called an infrastructure wish list,
Okay, yeah,
and every year we reprioritize, so
and this has been on there.
Yeah, for a
this
while.
has been on there for a while.
Yep.
Um,
It's a great
Wouldn't
project,
happen to
I
have
just,
64,000 to redo the boat ramp down there, would you?
which boat ramp?
Reeves Beach.
Hey, we're never gonna get a chance to redo this
45?
bathroom down there for under 25 grand, ever.
right,
This
I
is an
agree with you.
opportunity. I mean,
Well, if we can get
Well,
some
this
grant
is-
money and.
just to be
right,
clear,
we
this
can-
is
we
just
can-
the
we
septic
can
system.
pass the hat around down the beach if we have to.
I do,
Yeah.
and so is,
That should be up and running.
Edwards.
All right, so that will be
Doesn't
let's
change the
talk to Dawn about that
infrastructure
at another meeting about trying to go for a grant for that one.
This is just phase one.
But the existing system, 30 years old already.
Yeah, it's a block system.
Yes.
Nothing's under 30 to 40 years
I
here.
think, if you put a quarter box on the stall, and you get some money that way.
That's not true, we did the Wading River Beach.
All right, so this I think
changed
is
by then.
a go, so go ahead and,
She said nothing is listed in the budget.
and that you charge us another one to try and fix the boat ramp down there when you're looking for your grant, so do some magic. All right, so thank you very much on that one.
Thanks, guys.
Thank you,
Thank
Joe.
you, Joe.
And then Drew,
As always.
Nesto, engineer, the replacement vehicle,
Hello?
replacement vehicle?
Yes. Okay, so, I'm not sure if you're aware, the, vehicle that Ernesto normally drives, has significant front end damage, estimated at, 23,000?
Yeah, something like that.
What is
Between the body run, it's an old police vehicle, so it's got body run,
Crown Vic?
I think
No,
it's got
Tahoe.
160,000
Tahoe.
miles on it.
Tahoe, 160,000 miles, the rear end,
Oh, I see, yeah.
snapped in the middle of the intersection the other day. So,
Well, at
The-
least
the
you got the
cost-
last bit out of it.
there's nothing left of it, so.
So we'd like to get,
Literally.
we would like to replace it with a truck that's the same as the other, B&G vehicles, so that they could use this vehicle in the wintertime when they plow. We would get a hitch attached to it. And if the truck goes down, they could just easily use one of ours for our truck. It's $32,000.
Where is, I know that we had budgeted $275,000 for police vehicles, including the Coke vehicles.
Okay,
So, I don't know what condition the Coke vehicles are in, but those are the Ford Explorers or whatever they were that, I mean, should we look at those first and see if any of them are capable of putting a plow on them? Because we didn't budget for this 32,000 for a new truck for engineering. But we did budget for new Coke vehicles.
10,000 is what was budgeted, I believe.
Okay, so at least you have 10,000
Yeah.
for vehicles, but I,
Yeah, no, I know we discussed this with
It was
Let me
half
just-
and half from two different budgets.
Yeah, half of it's coming
That's
from
right.
B and G, half of it's gonna come from engineering,
Yep.
and B and G's gonna pay the additional cost for the plow entirely on their own.
And
So
did they
it's
have
slightly-
vehicle in their, they had vehicle in their budget for this year or no?
Yeah, we have the money within both of our budgets to accomplish.
for the 32.
Yeah,
For the
we
32,
have
they
we
split it
already
between the
budgeted
two.
our own
Okay.
money between the two departments.
It's not gonna be able to put a plow on the Coke units, cause they're, SUVs,
You're right.
and they're coming at you probably with 140,
I know.
150,000 miles on it, so.
As long as it's budgeted for, otherwise
Yeah,
I'm just
we,
trying
we
to figure
we
out where we're getting
contacted
the
Mike Curtis from the garage first, and he said he has nothing for us before we came before you to ask for a new vehicle.
I just don't know whether or not Chief has ordered new Coke vehicles yet, but if,
Can't you get a
if
little
Tim and
smart
Jim are
car
saying that the
driver
Coke
there?
vehicles can't
Double
accommodate a
check,
plow, then.
double check on that, if
Okay.
there's something there, and then, if you know, if there is something, just email back, otherwise. Now, there's a resolution submitted for this? There's no resolution submitted on this one, okay,
Is this state bid, was this a Ford or something?
State bid.
okay.
Ford, Chevy,
Chevy,
Colorado, or
Silverado,
32 grand, huh?
with the plow.
Wow, get two, man, I'm gonna have one of those, that's a good price. It is good, it's a good price. That's a good price for a Silverado.
That is a great price.
All right, guys, so I guess, okay to go through.
Okay,
Just check with check about the vehicle first,
we'll
and
do
then
that.
speak to Bill, and also, once again, encumber the money.
Okay.
How sad is that, you say 32,000 is a great price for a vehicle.
Yeah,
You know?
well, I'm telling you, the new
Nothing's
Chevys
No.
with all the bells and whistles are
Fords are
like
better, but that's all right.
85, 90.
okay, good.
Yeah, we're all good, thank you very much.
Bye, guys.
My goodness gracious.
All right, we're ready for resolutions.
I gotta move my stuff off, because we need a bigger table.
Oh, I'm sorry, we forgot the one other thing, yeah. This is the RFP for the basic audit.
Okay, so, as you may remember, we discussed this about 3 or 4 weeks ago.
I discussed half of it, on this one of them.
I sent an email out of the Independent Audit Committee's recommendation. Since then, we've had both AVZ and Cullen and Danowski here for your interview. So now it's just simply, the recommendation is for AVZ, is simply for the board to make a decision on who they're going with based on the recommendation and the information in front of you.
And one of the reasons that my concern is that the difference in the price for AVZ and Cullen and Danowski is $38,000, which is quite a large amount. And I don't know, I think that they're both qualified to do it. I do understand your concerns about bringing somebody new in, but AVZ we've also had for 10 years now as our auditors. I'm very much of the mindset that after 10 years, I think you should have somebody else come in and do your audit. I would switch them every 5 years would be what I would think would be a good course of action. So I think it being 10 years and saving $38,000, I think that that has some validity to it.
Well, it's the 2017, right? So it's 35.
less?
What was that? No, no, it would, yeah,
It's 2017 that
I'm
we're
sorry,
looking at
I'm sorry,
right
yeah,
now.
20,
Which is
35,000, and then in 2018. But the way the contracts work, they're yearly contracts with 1-year extensions on them, correct? So,
Actually, it's a 3-year with 2 1-years.
2
but we
1-year,
had proposed, but you can cancel after any year. And we had proposed, just doing 1 year with AVZ because of the, circumstances in the,
Is there, I know that Cullen and Danowski had said that they were, when they were here, and they said that they had represented other municipalities, and, the CPF fund in the town of East Hampton is something that concerns me greatly, that they were the auditors at the time, when that,
I thought they said they came in.
they came in.
They came in after to take a look at it.
okay, I thought they were there at the time.
Yeah, well, at the time, there wasn't a need for a CPF audit. And then after that, the state audited, all of the CPF funds, and then put the requirement on the town to have a separate, independent, firm that, from who does their regular audit, do the CPF audit.
I've through the school district, I've worked with both AVZ and Cullen and Danowski, and they're both very good
Okay.
companies that we've used both of them for, at different times, and both of them I felt to do, very good work. So, I don't think that I would recommend one over the other as far as their quality of work. I think they both do quality work. I just, as I said, I just think it's quite a big cost savings.
I agree. What is the budget for the audit for this year?
155,
One
because that's what it was.
But all three audits, for all three audits?
No, for that audit.
For that audit?
For 2017.
For 2017. The other thing in there is, and we had discussed this also, the justice court audit that needed to be done was included in this, and so the difference is really only $29,000 if ABC does both of them, because they gave us a discount on that one. Their full price is still cheaper than anybody else for the justice court audit, but we would pay them the full price if they don't do this audit. So the difference is 29, not 35. Because there's a $6,000 discount on the justice court audit if they're here doing both audits.
And there
So-
was no discount from Cullen and Danowski
No.
if they do the justice court?
You mean if they do both, we pay, it's a $29,000 overall?
Yeah.
Difference between the
The
two
difference is $29,000
As
more
opposed to
instead
the
of
30,
35.
you said 38, I thought.
30,
But
I
if
said
you
38
look
by
at it,
mistake, I was looking at 2018.
It's probably because Danowski is only budgeting 940 hours. to
I was
do
gonna say,
the
look
job.
at
But that's what I asked them when they were here.
Right.
Their budgeted hours, was that a price? And they said, no, it's all encompassing, whatever amount of time it took them to do it is what was covered under the price. So if they come in and it takes them, 1,100 or 1,200 hours, then that's still covered under the $120,000.
I just wonder how they come up with
I'm
that
just concerned that they would be that low, that, I don't wanna say that they don't know what they're doing, but I think ABC has done
They have
done it, they know
enough
it's a
to
more
know.
realistic
Well,
situation, and the fact that, Jack Orban is making the recommendation as our independent audit committee member, I would be leaning towards
But
ABC.
I'm gonna say that I think part of their idea to go with ABZ was because, Bill, that you said because we put the Edmonds in, and you felt that maybe there were some changes in your staff there, that ABZ, because they were familiar with us, but they have done it for 10 years, and when Cohen and Danowski did over at the courts, all of a sudden they found $23,000 that ABZ's been doing for a long time, that never found. So, I mean,
Bill, you're shaking your head.
Yeah,
so-
that's not really, the $20,000 is something when they went in and did an in-depth audit of money that hasn't been sent over to the town yet. That once the judge left, that money had to be sent over here. It's old outstanding bond stuff that the court should send over here once the judge leaves. And then we will hold it for 6 years if someone doesn't come for their bond, and then we get it. So, but as far as the recommendation.
You still have bail money.
What's that? Yes. So as far as the recommendation, that's one of the reasons. What's happening here is Cullen Danowski is bidding lower. The fact that they're thinking it's gonna take them less time was a concern for me. If they were bidding lower because they just wanna get into town, that's fine. Let's take advantage of that and save money. The only problem is that's why we asked for 1 year, because this is just not the year to do that, and we would recommend them doing that next year and going with them at the 120.
but they said they'd be bound by the 120?
Well, they are, regardless. So whether they're budgeting, so the only difference here is in their mind, they
Well-
think they're budgeting for 900 hours, as opposed to, they know they're budgeting for 1,500 hours and they're gonna lose the money. Okay, so they're now telling us that they're budgeting for 900 hours, expecting it to be done in that time period, and I know that they will take whatever time they need to get the audit done. They'll just lose a lot more money than they're expecting on the audit.
Well, I don't know, because the is ABZ just higher? Because then you have EFRP came in at 114.
And they came in 800 hours, and they came in 800
You're
hours,
right.
and they're from upstate.
That's why they're not even
and they've tried
highlighted.
to get
But I
it-
mean, you would think ABZ's hours would be even lower, because they've been doing it for 10 years and are very comfortable with the
How long
system.
it takes
But
to
if you
do
look
it
at
right.
But not
Rockies,
after the
how I
first,
look at
not after the first, not
If
after
you
the
look
first.
at Naraki Smith budgeted the same amount of hours and a similar rate. So those are the going hours and the going rate. The company from upstate's trying to do the same thing. We had an issue with that. A similar company tried to do the same thing with Brookhaven, and they didn't even finish the audit. We eliminated them the last time we did this 5 years ago, and now that's what EFPR is trying to do now. So we know that they're really not competent to come in and do it. I don't trust that they would finish the audit because I don't know them well enough. I do know that Cullen Danowski would
I have
finish
two
the audit,
schools,
even
I have
if
two
they do.
schools of thought. One is, I think it's fair to say that ABZ's, not only their hours is based on, they know what it takes to do the job. The other thing is, I absolutely agree with you, and I said this from the day we went with AVZ instead of McGowan Bank, whatever it was. That I thought that at that time, I said every 5 years, we really should be looking at fresh eyes, just for that purpose. So, I mean, so I can understand going with Cullen, as a set of fresh eyes. I don't know whether it's not a 3-year contract or whatever, but,
It's a one-year contract.
yeah, I mean, I think
I thought it
that,
was 3 years with
No,
two,
one year with 3-year contract with, 1-year extension after the first year. So
'cause
you
you gotta
sign,
remember,
you do
AVZ
3 years,
came
but
in
you,
this
you
town,
up the
yeah.
contract every single year. So if you don't like them after 1 year, you walk away.
AVZ came into town at a very rough time, when Jack was, you were new, Jack had died, and it
The
was,
audits hadn't been done
oh
for
my
3
word,
years.
it was absolute.
So one of the
Full
things, I
bar.
just wanna make sure we're clear on the term of this. The term of these are 3 years with 2 1-year extensions, meaning I have to come back to the board to extend it the 4th and 5th. The first 3 years, we just rehire them the second, third year. If we have a problem, we don't have to rehire.
Correct.
The suggestion was only 1 year for AVZ. If you go with Cullen and Danowski, we would give them 3 years, and 3 years with the additional 2. And again, if next year this time, or next year, or this year in August or September, when they issue their report, we weren't happy with it for some reason, that would be the time to then do another RFP and bring someone else in. But I'm only asking you to go with AVZ for 1 year because of the money we could potentially save, but the problems it would cause in doing this year's audit, being short-staffed, new system, and all that other stuff. So, if we do go with Cullen, it would be a 3-year with 2 1-year extensions. If we go with AVZ, it would be 1 year, and we would do this process.
And $29,000 more.
And $29,000 more, and we would do this process again at the end of the year. So
Right, but
it's up,
I think,
totally up.
I think what Bill's saying is
Your
that
recommendation is AVZ.
with Cullen and Danowski, they said 120,000, 100 for 2017, 120 for 2018, and
That's-
120 for
No,
2019.
this is the RFP if we hired them this year. Next, if we wanna hire them next year, we do another RFP, and they come in again, and they can come in at a higher price.
But I
This
think
is
that
not a
they're,
guaranteed price for, if we don't sign them now, this is not their guaranteed price.
no, but I'm saying if we do sign them now, their price is 120 based on getting it for 3
Oh,
years.
if we, yes,
Yeah.
if we sign, but if you don't like them after the first year, it's an extension, so you do not have to extend them after the
That's
first
not
year.
what I'm hearing from Bill.
Bill, is that correct or not?
It's a 3-year contract with 2-year extensions.
Okay.
However, at any given time, except if in the middle of the audit, we don't like them, we can't
We
send
can't
them
do
away
that.
then.
We can't,
Because that's like,
because
oh, we don't like what you do, and you're finding stuff. But at the end of the year, once they've issued their first audit, we can then say, you know what, we don't like, you know.
We're not interested in
we're not
working with you the
interested
next
in
audit.
working with them again.
So then it's not a
We'll do
3-year
another.
contract.
The reason why I'm saying it's 3 years, because if we like what they do, we don't have to come back to the board and say, let's do this again. We just automatically do it for year 2 and 3.
We re-up them.
I have to come back for year 4 and say, hey, we're still happy with them. Do we give them another year? And we do the same thing for year 5.
Okay, so in the RFP, just to be clear, we didn't say the town is looking to hire an outside auditor for a 3-year contract, and that's what they base these numbers on.
They did base it on 3 years. We told them 3 years with 2 single-year extensions.
But that's always the way the contracts work with the auditors.
Okay,
Is
so
you-
then
is-
ask them
is
if
you-
they'll do
is you-
1
is-
year for the
no, no,
120,
but-
and then we'll
But,
do
but,
like
no,
what you
but
said
it's
with
the
ABZ.
one year, 1 year or 3 year is the same. You have the option after 1 year to say, I don't wanna do it with you the second year. You have the option after the second year, say, I don't wanna do it with you, because you have to re-up the contract and agree to do it the second year and the third year. You're just knocking in your price.
I know, but what I'm saying is that we put out an RFP saying that we're looking for an outside auditor for a 5-year, or 3 years, and then 2 1 years after that.
Because they base their price
So
on
I just don't, I wanna make sure that it says in the contract for Cullen and Danowski that it's not a 3-year contract, it's a 1-year contract, because if we're not happy with your services, we can cancel it.
It's a, how is it worded? It's a,
The contract will say that.
Okay,
We always put the wording in the contract, that is, either one of us can opt out after a year. They can't start the audit and then drop out. They can't start the audit and we kick them out.
okay,
But after the first year, we both can look at each other, hey, we're happy with each other, we'll just continue this for 3 years.
and you've locked in your price.
okay, so it says after 1 year, if we're not happy with them, or if we find that they,
My
didn't put the
feeling
hours
is
in that they thought it was gonna take, then
They're both reputable companies,
Yeah.
and one's a lot less.
I
But
agree.
a third less hours dedicated to doing the
It's
job.
not, it's not a
Except
third.
that
I
if it
know they
takes
can go
more,
beyond
they
that, I
have-
understand that, but
But they're not locked into those hours.
But Bill, explain how it works.
I'm
The-
not
the audit-
comfortable with somebody who doesn't have a grip on the job that they're bidding it so low for the hours. Because
I
this
would've
is a
had-
third less hours, this is a big difference, this isn't
I'm
just
not in favor of
100
ABC,
hours.
but I can tell you, I am
Maybe they work.
the only reason I would hedge
can
towards
ask them
ABC
to
is
up
because
their
of
hours.
the shortfall and the transition that's happening in accounting now, it's the only reason I would.
And
I think
and
that's
the
a perfect
And the
reason to do it.
independent audit committee and I discussed the fact that Cullen and Danowski was only budgeting 900 hours.
And when you asked them that, what did they say?
They think that's how many hours it can be. It was discussed here in work session.
How many hours did ABZ actually do last year?
1,500
But
hours,
they
that's what
actually,
they're basing it on.
but I
Yes,
know
that-
that's enough, but they said they were here
That's what
1,500
they're
hours.
basing it on. Not the first couple of years that they were here, this is, now that they're here, this is the amount of hours that it
And
takes
do
them.
you think,
And that's the amount of hours that Naraki Smith, so there are only certain places that do this in Suffolk County, even on Long Island. And Naraki Smith is one of the other companies. Cullen, ABZ, and Naraki Smith are three of the companies that will do towns of our size. So Naraki Smith is budgeting and bidding for the hours they think it's gonna take them. If Cullen was budgeting for the hours, but not the dollars, because they were willing to lose money to get their foot in the door, that would have made myself and the independent audit committee feel a little more comfortable knowing that. But I'm not sure that they know, or they agree, unless they have some magic number that they can, accept 50% on a dollar or 60% on a dollar of what they work, that it's gonna take them that many hours.
But
That was one of the concerns.
but then you're saying that you would be comfortable for having ABZ, say, this year and going to Cullen and Danowski
Oh, we'll do
next
another
year?
RFP. and
But I'm saying is you would, you're kind of saying that you'd be okay just having ABZ coming and switching next year, and it looks like just from these numbers that Cullen and Danowski may be the one even next year if they come in, numbers come in the same, and that you would be comfortable with that.
If they still come in at 900 hours and the same price, we'll be having the same discussion. Do we agree that they can do it in that much time? Now that, it's out in the open, they know how many hours the other two companies are budgeting for, and they go back and plug those numbers in. Will they bid 120,000 with 1,500 hours, saying, yeah, we're willing to take that loss? That we'll know at the end, when we go out for RFP again, if in fact we want to do that.
But do you feel, Cullen and Danowski, if they did misjudge their hours, that they would do any less of a job as opposed to putting the more hours in?
I have called around, and they are a reputable firm, and I don't think that they would step out on us or not do a good job. Okay, they would stick by the fact that they said they would get it done, albeit losing money on it.
So if it takes more hours, it's kind of their problem.
Yes,
It's not ours,
exactly.
that's why I like the company that costs less. I understand what you're saying, but, and that's a large amount.
All right, so everybody has the information, and then we have the vote on Wednesday.
You just need to let me know which company I'm putting in the resolution for Wednesday.
Do you wanna do a,
You want me
We
to have
wanna
two of
give
them
them
ready
any
for
voice?
Wednesday? I can have two of them ready for Wednesday.
I mean, do you wanna give a voice to it? I think,
I think we should have two ready.
yeah, I mean, I would go with Cullen and Danowski, just for the savings on it. As I said, I've worked with both companies in the past. I find them both to be very, very reputable. I find them to do a good job. I think they did a good job when they came and presented for the Justice Court. So I would be comfortable saving the money and going with them. Jim?
I've always been a proponent of fresh eyes all the time, always. I said that 10 years ago. The only thing that gives me a little bit of pause, and I like the fact that there's $35,000 in it, or what it is, looking at buying trucks and stuff, is that the thing that the independent audit committee came up with when they were talking about how qualified they are, but then they made a point of saying about the shortfalls right now in the accounting, and the fact that they're going through computer changes and staff changes, and there's 2 or 3 accounting departments stated in the 4th quarter, a new auditing firm will be required significantly more time from the accounting department in the first year of an audit. So there's some factors in there that give me some pause, whether now is the time to change horses, that's all. I think I'm going to, at this point, I think I'm kicking it back and forth, actually. It's the first time I'm dealing with it in my head.
You wanna
so-
vote last?
Yeah, I wanna go last before the supervisor. That's all.
Why don't we just put them both up for a vote on Wednesday night, and by
I wanna
then
ask-
we will have looked into
I
like
wanna talk to
further.
county personnel, I wanna talk a little more, you know, I don't wanna make a decision.
Well, I'm gonna say that I have a great appreciation for Jack Orban and the Independent Audit Committee. I understand what you're saying, Bill, but, I mean, Cullen and Danowski do other municipalities, and they have a great reputation, and it's a good savings to our town. So, I would support Cullen and Danowski.
Okay,
I support ABZ simply because of the, Jack Orban doesn't have a dog in the fight, and, he's done a tremendous job for the town as an independent auditor. So I'm gonna, that coupled with the fact of the low balling on the hours from Cullen and Danowski, I'm gonna stick with ABZ.
But in all fairness, Jack doesn't know any other firm.
Doesn't what?
He doesn't know any other firm that works in town.
Well,
He worked with Cullen and Danowski
Yeah.
on the, justice court audit.
Oh, did he? Okay.
And also our independent, internal auditor, who is, Charlene, works with all these firms, and they all sat and discussed.
Oh, okay.
Well, I don't think it was a question of one was qualified over the
Right,
other. I think
that's
the
what I'm
question was the our own
So he-
in-house,
so he knows
our
Cullen
own
and Danowski.
in-house situation
Well enough.
of having the new system in. I don't think it had to do, anything to do with the quality of the work of either one of the
No,
companies.
I'll give you that, I agree.
Jody?
I will decide on Wednesday night. I don't think it's appropriate at a work session to call a vote.
Okay. So I'll have both of them ready. I don't know how you wanna do as far as which one you're pulling up, but we'll have both of them ready.
Okay.
Thank you, Bill.
As always.
All right, so we'll go on to resolutions. If I can pull this up on here.
Maybe.
Bill, could you maybe do this? I think I lost where I was.
Oh, no.
I start
That's the same thing, that happened to me when I
I
brought my
know.
laptop
See,
up.
now, if we had voice over IP here, you don't have to worry about it.
Oh, I think there's a resolution. Now, where did you go on to?
Down here, you see that? Actually, the shortcut on your
Okay.
desktop now, we'll show you that later. Now what we have to do is.
That's what I just asked.
Are they part of the audit committee?
That's it.
Okay, very good. All right,
Wow,
so
you guys are online now, actually? You don't need paper copies anymore?
I have one paper copy. Let's see. All right, so the first resolution, authorize removal of fixed assets records from system. Second is sanitation recycling program, budget adjustment.
And where is that going to? Is
Butterfly,
that for, the pilot? and-
butterfly.
I think you guys talked about it in November.
The riches with the
Yeah, yeah.
recycling monies, we.
No, I have no problem with that, but I know that there's also money coming out of the recycling fund to pay for the,
Those are keep up.
household waste. We had to come up with some money, Jill, right, as per our meeting with, Cash and Associates for the update to our. That has nothing to do with this, this is just about the butterfly. Okay. I just wanna make sure that there is, okay,
Thank you, Jill. Gonna miss you.
Thank you.
thank you.
To authorize his attendance at the Government Financial Officers Association Annual Conference.
Negative.
Who's going?
That is
Bill and
the
Gail.
CPA and an accountant. Old Orchard at Baiting Hollow Water Capital Project, number 30131, closure. That's a refunding. Amends policy for transfer of funds.
You were making it a total of 5 instead of 75?
It was the Bill, do you just wanna address this? Originally, it was 2,500 from 25,000 to 7,500. Bill, I thought we were going to 5,000 to 10,000, not to 15,000.
No, here's what we were doing, this is what we were proposing anyway. Obviously, if some of the terms have to change, that's fine, but, we were looking to increase, the ability that I have is to transfer up to 2,500 and the supervisor up to 7,500. What we're looking to do, and we report on a monthly basis, any transfers that are done under that amount to the board. Anything over 7,500, the board has to pass a resolution. What we're looking to do is increase it from 2,500 to 5,000 for me, and from 7,500 to 15,000 for the supervisor. All of those would have to be reported back to the board, and the other thing we were changing is instead of monthly, we're gonna pay checks every Thursday before the Tuesday town board meeting, or Wednesday town board meeting. That would be the time that we would have to transfer money to get those bills paid. So we would then report at that point, when you're signing off to pay bills, if there's any transfers that we did, you would also, see a report of the transfers we did, 7,800, 10,000, whatever it would be. You'd see those transfers at the same time.
Bi-weekly.
So bi-weekly, when.
I think I think we looked at that, bi-weekly is confusing, can we say bi-monthly?
Yeah, we can, well, actually what it's going, we can put the terms however it is. The intention is to do it when we pay the bills before the meeting. So if we do it bi-monthly, it would really be prior to the week before, the week of, or with the resolution that pays bills, we will send the report to the board so they can see what was transferred. So for instance.
Why
if
are we
two-
doing this?
Because coming back and forth to the board for everything, there are some times when we need to transfer $7,800, $8,000, $10,000. On the new system, I used to be able to just say, okay, override it because it was a utility or something like that. I don't have the authority to do that, and I can't actually do the override on the system. I would come to you guys and get you guys to sign off sometimes if something that I had to do. This new system won't allow us to do that. We actually have to make the transfer in the system, which I can't do without a resolution.
I don't like it. I think anything over 2,500, they should have to come back to the board. I think that if it's not budgeted for, we could have a special town board meeting and authorize it, we
Well,
could do,
it's-
and 15,000, and you're transferring funds from one budget line to another. So budget lines are created because department heads come in and say, I need this much money in this budget line for what I need in order to operate next year. So if you're allowing them to spend from, an increase from 2,500 up to 7,500, 7,500 is a lot of money.
Well, it comes out of one budget line into another, it's not an addition to the budget,
Right.
they're
I
just transferring
understand
it from
that.
one line to the other.
Manipulate funds within your.
Exactly, and I understand that,
I mean, I
but,
think it's.
and from the supervisor's office, from 5,000 to 15,000,
I think that we had discussed that at 10.
The number is actually 25 to 5 and 75 to 15,
So
so
it's-
I would be able to do it for 5,000, or.
And I think mine, when we had discussed it, I thought I had said 10, so it was really just a $2,500 increase in what had previously been allowed. And I think, how long had these numbers been in effect for?
They were, we had 2,500 since I had gotten here,
Right, so how many years is
And then-
that?
11 years.
And so the cost of things has increased. That's really the nature of it. So one item where 11 years ago for $2,500, that item has gone up. But can you give an example of
it's
several
really
times?
supposed to be like I mean, I don't know. And this is contrary to the fiscal impact statement that you're requesting, because if these transfers can occur between budget lines, then if the police budgeted for radar equipment, and then he ordered the radar equipment, and then he has the authority to go to Bill and say, hey, take 7,500 out of the radar equipment and put it into,
Well, he couldn't if it was already
would
encumbered.
if it was
This is,
encumbered,
give it a couple examples. I think that,
Well,
it's mostly like electrical, phone bill, that kind of stuff.
Let's take the radar equipment, and the chief needed $15,000 worth of radar equipment, but then something else happens. Now, don't forget, the budget is a plan also, it's an estimate and a plan, and then something happens and he needs something more importantly, so he now says, I'm only gonna buy $5,000 worth of radar equipment, I'll make do with the other ones, and then I will replace whatever else he needs to replace and move the money to there. So that allows him within his budget to say, okay, we thought we were gonna buy, 10 pieces of radar equipment, we're only gonna buy 3, and instead we'll upgrade the rest of those next year, and then, we'll do whatever else is causing, again, it's an estimate and it's a plan, but something breaks, B&G's talking about a truck right now. Oh, no, make do with the truck for another year, they tried to, and now they go into this year, and they can't, so.
so they come to us, and we're.
But that would be over the limit, correct.
Have you had
That would
issues or
not be able to
problems
happen.
20,000, I mean,
prompted this?
I think the 15's,
Or you just,
too high, but I think upping each one by
We
25.
often have stuff at that limit, so to come to the board however often, the department isn't gonna know, in an emergency, they're gonna have to come and get 3 signatures from you guys if that's the case.
I
That's
get
okay.
it, it's about operating and running a bit, I get
Because
it.
then there's a resolution with a budget transfer. So that's okay, if they had to come and get 3 signatures, we've done that before in an emergency situation. And then you have a recorded document with the clerk of a budget transfer, so that if you ever needed to go back and say, how come they're coming to us now and saying they don't have enough money for gas? Oh, well, because in, our last town board meeting on February 3rd, whatever it was, you transferred $69,000 out of police fuel into
But we
another
wouldn't-
line.
But we
That was
wouldn't
the-
do that, we wouldn't take it from a utility or something that they needed money to run. I have no control over the increase in price of gas, so I would never allow them to move it from there. If the chief told me I don't need the flares, or I don't need the radar equipment this year, okay, I'm gonna get that, I'm gonna know he doesn't need it when I take the $10,000 out of it, because it gets signed off by the supervisor's office. There's a record, you guys would have been notified, there's a record, and now when the chief went back, now I need radar equipment. Well, we gave
Already
that
took
up
it.
until next year, because you needed something else more important early in the year.
Well,
So,
I can tell you that I am a no on this, but you guys can vote however you'd like.
do you want me to change it to 10,000?
I think it should be down to 10, I think an increase of 25,000
Well,
in
leave
each one of
everything
them
the
is.
same, but make the supervisor authority up to 10.
I think
Okay.
$7,500
thank you.
is a lot of money to just, give to a department head, but that's okay.
Well, each department
It's
runs
not
their
to the
own budget.
department.
It's up to 7,500 that they can do transfers from one line to another within their department.
No, they can't, they can only do
25.
five, they can only do five, with this, it's only 5,000 and it gets signed off for Bill. If it's at 10,000, then it gets signed off through my office. They still, the department head can't just switch it around.
But that's not how this reads.
Department heads may request transfer of funds exceeding 2,500 up to 7,500.
And that's
where
what's
does it
currently, that's
say-
currently what happens.
That's like.
And so we're
the
increasing it to
warehouse.
5,000 and 10,000, so each one is going up by $2,500. But they still, the department head still has to go to Bill for approval, and Bill is asking to have the approval to do it at his office level from 2,500 to 5,000.
Right.
And then anything over 5,000 but below 10,000 can get approved by my office, which
Correct.
currently is at 7,500. So it's just upping those two approvals that already exist by $2,500.
Well, it hasn't been done in a ton of years, and
Right, so
it
it's,
just makes sense.
It does. I
Alright.
just transferred it to my account, that's all.
awards, I'm gonna go on here, awards bid for the annual heating and ventilation and air conditioning maintenance contract. Next one is ratified and accepts the postponement of a retirement. Accepts highway superintendent's personnel report and requests for town resolutions for affected personnel requests. There's several of these. I
There's
think.
several of these, and these were all discussed, I guess, when I had my procedure last week. I guess we
These were actually discussed prior to the budget, from last year, and they were all included in your budget last year, but, they were not put into place, prior to, December 31st. And when I came in, that there was a request, but none of them had been put through. Some of them needed to be posted, some of them,
I do remember talking about
needed
this
a
last
couple
year.
other items, so those were all done. So they're just different personnel. I'm gonna go through, just go on to the next.
13.
Yeah, which is approves employees' requests concerning, accrued time carried over. That's part of the CSEA contract, for somebody who was out on, a leave to carry that over.
So you're on what, WS?
I'm on 13, yeah.
Hey,
So
yeah.
I'm up to 14 now, is everybody caught up? This is the grants the permit to cut down trees, remove two dilapidated buildings, and undertake land distribution to Pecana Care Addiction Research and Rehabilitation Center, Janway Calverton.
Is that really how you spell dilapidated? It looks weird, but I guess I.
I think there might be an E in there.
Okay, just checking.
Yeah, that's misspelled.
Yeah.
Okay. I just thought we talked about this.
It's dilapidated. Authorized to publish advertisement for general hardware items for the town of Riverhead, that's 15. Diane, just on one of these, the time is wrong, just to double check, one of them is like, there seems to be two in there that have different,
Okay, I'll check.
oh, the next, okay, so it's for number 16.
It's spelled correctly
Oh.
within the resolution. It's just the title. Only the title.
So,
So 16.
16, authorized to publish advertisement for propane fuel for the town of Riverhead. I think it's just the 11 a.m. there, and then on the next one, it's 2:05, so
I will do.
might just wanna coordinate them. 17, authorization to publish advertisement for truck parks for town of Riverhead. 18, authorized town clerk to publish and post a notice of public hearing to consider a proposed local law for the amendment of chapter 289 entitled Vehicles, Traffic, Parking Regulations of the Riverhead Town Code. Stop and yield, railroad, that's just what, okay. This one, I believe, it's confusing, the actual resolution, there's a picture with it, which I am going to try and ask every time we have these now to have a picture with it so we can actually see. So this is within the subdivision that's there.
Oh, they don't have stop signs at these roads?
No.
Oh, Lord. All right.
19, authorize the supervisor to execute an agreement with County of Suffolk County for Office of the Aging AAA Transportation Program. We were just checking with Judy on this. We think our numbers are correct on this, but we just wanna make sure that we haven't upped our ridership on this, that we should be entitled to more. So as soon as we find that out, if that needs to change, we'll let you know, but as of right now, we think it's correct. And it's a really long contract.
You aren't kidding, my wife. Fingers get tired.
And
37 pages.
There's nothing that's not covered in that.
I wanna add something.
Yeah.
How many hours of attorney's pay did that take?
And it's all for $8,000. I'm sure the attorney's cost way more than that. 20 is authorized supervisor to execute an agreement with Suffolk Youth Lacrosse officials for referee umpire services for Town of Riverhead Police Athletic League boys lacrosse programs grades 4 through 8 for 2018 calendar year. I left this in here. I do have some questions about it because I don't know, and you are on the Police Athletic League, I don't know that they operate as a not-for-profit organization through the police department.
No.
So
the police, the chief actually gave you a copy, you remove nonprofit from the resolution, and that comes forward to the amended bill.
Okay, all right, so
Right.
we'll submit it, and it will be amended.
Yeah, Tim might know that.
Yeah.
How many years did you run that?
They're coming up next. Authorize the supervisor to execute agreement with Riverhead Lacrosse Club, Inc. for referees umpire services for Town of Riverhead Police Athletic League girls grades K through 8 and boys grade K through 3 lacrosse program for 2018 calendar year. So it's different umpires for different groups. Referees, sorry. Authorizes, authorizes supervisor to execute a lease agreement between the Riverhead Water District and SMSA Limited Partnership, doing business as Verizon Wireless.
$45,000 more in the water district property on that lease.
Yeah. Authorizes the town clerk to publish and post notice to consider a local law to amend chapter entitled zoning land and development of the Riverhead Town Code. This is the zoning for DC1. Downtown one. Approves an amendment, parking district actually, approves an amendment to the agreement with Fundamental Business Services, FBS, for parking violations collections. This will allow people to pay tickets, parking summonses online.
Nice.
Authorizes resolution 127-217 and 959-217, final site plan application of Peconic Bay Medical Center and Northwell Health. If there's any questions to that, we have folks here that wanna
That's what I
answer.
wanted in the beginning, was an agreement, not a covenant, because there's too many people that have to sign off on a covenant, it's cost prohibitive.
Very much so.
Yeah, so the only thing that we have added to this, that if at any time the Peconic Bay Medical Center should sell 100% of their interest in the property, that the covenants will become enacted and have to be in place prior to the sale. So, good. And 26 is approved settlement. And 27 is authorizes town clerk to publish and post a notice of public hearing to consider a proposed local law for an amendment of chapter 237 entitled Highway, Streets, and Sidewalks of the Riverhead Town Code.
You waited all that time for that?
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
This is going to be amended again,
Sidewalk.
as per.
Yes, this is the sidewalk one that we talked about. Authorize town clerk to publish and post a notice of public hearing to consider a proposed local law for an amendment of chapter 289 entitled Vehicles, Traffic, and Parking Regulations of the Riverhead Town Code. code. This one is the, as far as the snow emergencies and road closures. Authorized
I
attendance.
thought that, just in reading through this, where it says declaration of snow or winter storm emergency, I have no problem with that, but as far as the road closures, I thought it was under highway law or town law with the highway department saying that the highway superintendent is the only one that can really,
Now, there's executive powers given to the supervisor through B and
is
G
there?
law,
I thought it was
section
under
16.
town law, but, cause I was talking to Ed Romaine about it with, and he
I
said
don't
that
know
it
if
was
you
up
know
to the
about
highway
that.
superintendent to declare, so I just wanna make sure that we're not
You don't know it.
usurping town law.
No, and actually, we sat with Gio and the chief when we hashed this all out.
I know, but I'm just.
I will double check on that, but, I believe once you declare the local emergency or a
Supervisor
snow
absolutely
emergency, I
has
mean, at
law.
snow emergency, you can actually even accommodate buildings and such, so, so 29, authorized attendance at the 2018 New York State Clerks Association's Annual State Conference.
In Hawaii?
Yeah.
Nice.
2 weeks in Hawaii in the middle of February.
I wish.
But we'll only cover $10 for it.
No, that won't be there that week
Albany,
either.
Hawaii.
I'll be in Las Vegas that week.
Authorizes notice to bidders, plant number 4, lime system replacement, Osborne Avenue, Riverhead Water District. This is a H2M project, 18-01. This, I believe, is coming out of, they've budgeted this one for this year, and then the next one, which is authorized notice to bidders, constructions of booster station at plant number 15, contract, general construction, electrical, constructions, Tuttle's Lane, Jamesport, Riverhead Water District, H2M project number 1702. This project is part of, one of the 3 projects that you approved to go out for, bond, for, so that's, where this one falls under. I think it's like a 1.1 million, we'll see what the bid comes in, but that's, I think, what the original one might.
Chump change.
Yeah. Amends, resolution 2017 and approves, amended license agreement with Day Haven for reuse of the facilities at Stosky Park. This had come up, I know you guys have been working on this, what part of this, I'm just trying to see if the contract is here. The contract is not attached to this. This was held up, let me just see, if this is the amends? This is the license agreement. This is, resolution 32. What this is the Day Haven at Stosky Park. When they originally wanted to put this up a couple weeks ago, there's some renovation that has to happen in the building for some handicap accessible items, which had not been budgeted for in this year's budget. So we did meet with Day Haven. They have agreed to, pay, 25,000 of it, which will roll out from their rent until that is paid off. And then there is 10,000 that will come from, Community Development Agency from block grant money for the, rehabbing of the, facilities there.
I thought the block grant money that we had adopted resolution already assigning that money to the different agencies.
That is, I think that's the 7, I don't know exactly where the block grant money
It's
is, but I
35,000.
checked with Dawn, and she said that the money is available in there for the 10,000 in the budget from the block grant money. And I don't know exactly what line in that block grant.
It has its own line.
Yeah.
So that's not new, we already have a line in for the rehab of that building.
Okay, and I thought that, I had spoken to Senator Lavelle, and he told me that he was trying to get $50,000 for this facility also.
I did, I contacted him about that because we didn't think we would have the money for that, but with Senator Lavelle, the money is this budget, so it's a year out, and there is a second phase to the rehabbing of this building as we move forward. So we're applying for that for the following year, to be able to do the second phase of the rehab, which is what we were gonna do in the next year. So that money would be applied to that, but this way we don't have to wait another year for them to start, and they can go in with the money that we have currently, so we can move forward.
But he
Just
made
make
it
sure
sound
the
like he
heading
was
on
gonna
this-
get it sooner than later.
Just
What
make
was
sure the
that?
heading,
I thought he made it sound like he was gonna get it sooner than later.
He always does. But no, it's Joanne said it would be put in for this year's budget, which would not come till the following year.
Okay.
we have to make sure that the heading on this says amends resolution, and put the resolution number in there, not just the year. think it's 937.
Okay.
It's in the body, just not in the heading.
So you're saying that the 50,000 that he's gonna get is gonna be given to Dayhaven for next year?
Not given to it's not given to Dayhaven, it's given to the town in support of Dayhaven using the facility. So the money will come to us, we will do the work on the building, so that it becomes compliant. I think it's, because I don't know that has handicap access, and there's a certain railing and stuff that has
Yeah,
to
the
be put on.
bathrooms, there was a problem with the bathrooms.
Right, there's another bathroom that needs to be there for a bit of a washroom facility, things like that. So the building is ours, we're only giving them a license to use that, so the money would come to us. We would do the work on it, whether it be in-house and some materials, labor. But it would be to us in support of this program here, being housed here.
Okay.
Yeah, yeah, we have to raise that
Probably
toilet
the
up.
sinks are little.
And 33 extends agricultural advisory subcommittee. This is the TDR programs it was a 2-year program that they were originally done. They did come up with recommendations, but I think, Catherine, you had met with them. And there is a lot of other areas and other situations, things that they're thinking. I'll let you address it.
Well, they have new, recommendations that they want to discuss and work on and prioritize. So for that reason, they decided to keep the subcommittee.
And they do
Which is
appreciate it.
the subcommittee is a broader spectrum of people.
Yeah, I was on it and so was Jim.
That's not on almost here. The other thing is, I met with the CAC, it's off agenda, but it's a board discussion. I met with CAC, I met with Farmland. We went over the mission statements, we went over the personnel. We do have some reappointments come up. It's not part of this package yet, we just had the meetings this week. We did have a vacancy in the CAC that we had a resume come in, so that, I think that.
Actually, I think everybody in there needs to be restated. I think everybody is.
Well, I don't think CAC even has term limits. I don't have to read that, because they've
2 years.
been there for 10 years.
I know, they've been out of compliance for quite a while, so it's 2 years, so everybody would need to get, everybody.
All right, so I'll have all those made up.
And then we've also, put ads out and everything for the committee, so what we will do.
That's where Thomas came from. He came here, read the paper.
So what we will do with the people that have come through, I don't know, Diane, have you gotten any applications or anything for the committees or anything else through your office?
No, not in my office.
We've gotten quite a few through our, so what we'll do from our office, if it's agreeable to everybody, we will send whoever has an interest to the committee, whoever's liaison for that committee, you can bring it to that
Okay.
committee, and then you can interview the people through that committee, and then bring that recommendation, back to the board, if that's okay. And then for some of the board ones, that will be,
Yeah.
I don't have, for the board, does the whole board interview for the particular
Personnel.
board? Okay.
Jim, personnel did it in the past, right?
What's that?
Well,
Personnel did it in the past?
What's that?
Interviews for the.
But not for the,
planning-
not for the boards,
volunteer
but for the
committees.
volunteer committees I'm talking
No, we're
about.
not
Yeah, I mean,
gonna,
the
anybody wants to
committees-
volunteer their time, we're not gonna put through the ringer.
Got
The
it.
committees
Okay.
were done the way you're saying.
Right.
Is that the resumes would go to the boards or to the committees, and then the committees would decide, and they would interview and decide who the best fit would be for the committee.
Right,
Right.
we take the list, right?
And then
Recreation.
the other boards, I don't know how, it's been done in the past. I would imagine the whole town board can interview.
We've
Well,
always
yes,
posted.
at a work
I mean,
session.
whenever there was a vacancy or somebody
That's a good idea.
resigned from a committee, we would always post it, and people would put their name, put feelers out. It would always be on the town website.
But I think for the boards, for the other boards, I think the whole town board should interview.
What town
If you're doing planning, if you're doing,
Oh, you're talking about
zoning,
paid boards.
yes,
Oh, paid
yes,
boards.
yes,
Oh, I
yes,
see that.
What we've done in the past when it comes to boards like that is that we have grading sheets.
asked the-
So based on their resumes, we would grade them in a specific category as to experience and eligibility to sit on that board. And then, once we had those, then we would get down to the top 3 or 5, and then
You got that sheet still?
Then we look at their
yeah,
political
Meg has it.
contributions.
And then the committee, or the liaison to do the interviews, which was always John and,
But we don't have board liaisons anymore, remember, we decided not to do
yeah,
that.
so then I think it would be wise at that point, after they're graded, to come before the town board at a public work session and interview them there.
Okay.
Once we get to the top 3 or 5.
Okay, all right.
At a public work session?
Yeah, interview,
I-
because we don't have any more liaison to the
I don't know if it's done
boards.
at a public, I don't know that the interview, we will straighten it out and come back with a recommendation, how's that? I'm not sure exactly how it's done, so, we'll just do a little research on how it's been done in the past. And that's the end of the resolution, so, we will go into executive session.
We adjourn the meeting and go into executive session.
All right, I just have to
Second.
announce,
That's what's listed on that list.
for personnel, maintenance mechanic 2, salary review of community development agency employee, matters leading to the potential hiring of an individual, matters leading to the
I need a
potential
cigarette.
change of department oversight, contractual negotiations with A. Young, litigation, pending litigation in the town of Riverhead versus Plaza Auto, current litigation in the matter of the town of Riverhead versus Vading Hollow Farms LLC, Vading Hollow Farm Vineyard LLC, Steve Levine, Sharon Levine, and Richard Rubin.
So moved.